Back here closer to home, state and local leaders are speaking out this morning on both the chaos in D.C. Erica Zucco joins us right now. And Erica, people from both parties here seem to share the same sentiment when it comes to those responsible for all that violence from yesterday.
Yeah, Sarah, from a lot of leaders and lawmakers across the state of Texas, we did pretty much see agreement in terms of denouncing violence, though there were some differences in the statements when it came to the actual results of the election. Mayor Ron Nirenberg posted on Twitter saying, quote, "It is an extraordinarily sad day when rioters storm our nation's capital to violently disrupt Congress as it works to certify the Electoral College vote. This is a naked act of insurrection and should be treated as such. We must reject and rise above these violent acts." Governor Greg Abbott released a statement saying, "Peaceful protest is a core tenet of the United States Constitution. Violence and mayhem are not. The violence and mayhem must stop. America is founded on the rule of law, and law enforcement officers working to restore order at the United States Capitol must be heeded." And then outgoing Representative Will Hurd released a tweet saying, "This isn't a peaceful protest. This is an attack on our democracy and domestic terrorism to try to stop certifying elections. This should be treated as a coup led by a president that will not be peacefully removed from power." And Attorney General Ken Paxton tweeted saying, "I am sorely disappointed today in the certification of the election, but I don't believe violence is the answer." And we'll have more from our congressional representatives in our next half hour. Reporting in San Antonio, Erica Zucco, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.